Game 15 of the Premier League season is in the record books, and what an incident-filled, goal-filled round of football that it was. Fletch here bringing you a roundup of all the games that occurred and all the goals scored and everything in between. So without further ado, let's begin. And we begin with Arsenal and Manchester United. As stated, we begin with Manchester United and Arsenal, and it was Jose Mourinho's side who came from behind twice to deny Unai Emery's side with a 2-2 draw at Old Trafford. Arsenal took the lead through Mustafi, who's headed the ball into the ground, and what followed was an uncharacteristic error from David De Gea in the United goal, as he couldn't keep the ball from looping over him, and despite Ander Herrera's best efforts to clear the ball off the line, the referee had already given confirmation that the ball did cross the line and Arsenal were ahead. But it wasn't for long, however, as United soon equalised. Marcos Rojo's free kick was well saved by Gunners goalkeeper Bernd Leno, but Herrera kept the ball alive, finding Martial in the penalty area, and the Frenchman made no mistake in scoring from close range. There was then a minute of madness for both sides in the second half. First, Rojo's careless pass let in substitute Alexander Lacazette, and between him and Henrik Mkhitaryan, they worked a chance that resulted in the Frenchman going for on goal, but despite Rojo's best efforts to try and recover and make up for his mistake, he could only get a touch on the ball that wrong-footed De Gea and led to the Argentines scoring an own goal. But seconds from the restart, United were level again. A lapse in concentration by Sead Kolasinac allowed Jesse Lingard to pounce and instantly get United back on level terms. De Gea was on hand to keep the score level by denying both Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Lucas Torreira, and Arsenal did have the ball in the back of the net twice late on, but the first one was judged a foul on De Gea, whilst the second time Mkhitaryan was offside, as both sides had to settle with a point apiece. Not quite the game I in particular was expecting. You either thought this game would be a demolition job for Arsenal or United would find some way of stealing the game, but neither actually happened. Instead, there wasn't a lot in it, to be fair. Just a few clear-cut chances that have fallen Arsenal's way more, perhaps. But I did think that Eric Bailly in particular was brilliant in coming back from injury and starting this game. He was just a monster with everything that he did in the air. But this result means that Arsenal are now 20 games unbeaten in all competitions, and United, well, it's another point for them in their bid for, I guess, a Europa League spot. The second game I'm going to be focusing on features Manchester City, who kept up their unbeaten start to the season and maintained their stance at the top of the Premier League with a hard-fought victory against Watford, in which Leroy Sané and Riyad Mahrez got on the score sheet in a 2-1 victory. There were chances at either end prior to the opening goal. Roberto Pereira fired wide for the Hornets early on before Ben Foster denied Leroy Sané racing away from the Watford defence. Back at the other end, Ederson denied Troy Deeney from close range before City broke the deadlock. Riyad Mahrez with an in-swinging cross was met by Leroy Sané, who chested the ball into the back of the net for it to be 1-0 City going into half-time. 6 minutes after the restart, Mahrez turned from provider to goal scorer, striking the ball home from Gabriel Jesus' pass across the face of goal. And a few minutes from time, Watford did manage to grab a goal back through Abdoulaye Doucouré to set up an intriguing end to the game, but City held out for the win and the 3 points. It wasn't the perfect performance from City, but they got through it, and the win is all of theirs, and that's all that really matters. Watford can take some positives from this game. They got at City and unnerved them a little, and maybe some more teams could look at that as a bit of inspiration as to how to play against this City side. But regardless of how well they played, it's still a loss, and this loss does stretch their winless run to 5 games now. As for City, they remain top of the league and now turn their attention to Saturday's mouth-watering encounter with Chelsea, whilst the Hornets face the Toffees in Everton on Monday night. Our next game saw Liverpool come from behind to beat Burnley 3-1 at Turf Moor to keep on the tail of Manchester City, who beat Watford on Tuesday night. It was a first half that was fairly equal. Virgil van Dijk saw his header comfortably saved by Joe Hart in the Burnley goal, whilst at the other end Ashley Barnes saw his goal choked off for offside. In the second half, it was rather surprisingly the home side that took the lead. A bit of a scramble in the penalty area from a Burnley corner caused Alisson to not gain full control of the ball, and Jack Hawke reacted quickest to prod the ball home. But from there the Reds took over. Divock Origi teed up James Milner to strike home from outside the penalty area to equalise, before substitute Roberto Firmino put the Reds ahead with a simple tap-in from close range after Virgil van Dijk squared the ball across the goal for him. Another substitute finished the game off, and this time it was Xherdan Shaqiri who, with a cool finish, capped off a good counter-attack after Mohamed Salah set up. The result means the Reds remain both unbeaten and 2 points off of Manchester City. Burnley away is always a tough game to play, no matter how poorly they seem to have been playing this season, and a much rotated Liverpool side overcame this obstacle. It wasn't pretty by any means, but towards the end of the game it got better for the Reds, but credit Burnley for simply not rolling over like many had expected them to. Unfortunately for the Clarets, it does mean that this loss is their 10th of the season and they're stuck in the relegation zone, but there were a few positives to take away from this game that I'm sure that Sean Dyche will be happy with. Next we come to arguably the shock result of the round, and it played out at Molineux as Wolves beat Chelsea 2-1 in what was a great second half comeback. The Blues found themselves in front within 20 minutes when Ruben Loftus-Cheek's strike from distance was diverted inadvertently beyond Rui Patricio in the Wolves goal by his own defender Connor Cody. Chelsea had a couple of opportunities through Willian to double their lead, however, but they failed to do so, and they would be made to pay for their mistakes and misses by Wolves, and in particular Raul Jimenez just before the hour mark. Jimenez was played through on goal, and the striker made no mistake in firing the ball through Blues goalkeeper Kepa to equalise. A few minutes later, Wolves went ahead. Matt Doherty's fired a great ball across the face of goal, and Diogo Jota at the far post was on hand to turn the ball home. Maurizio Sarri's side had one final chance to equalise, but Cesc Fabregas shot over as Wolves claimed their first victory in 6 games. Great win for Wolves. I did mention in the preview that Wolves have been tough opposition for the top 6 this season, and this is another example of that. I don't think many predicted this result, but it's what football is all about. As for Chelsea, they lose ground on both Manchester City and Liverpool and even fall to 4th with Tottenham's win, taking them above the Blues. Their second defeat in recent weeks for Chelsea now, and maybe now Maurizio Sarri is finding out what the Premier League is really about. Seeing as though I just mentioned Spurs, they are the next game I'm going to be focusing on, as Spurs slightly redeemed themselves for their poor display in the North London derby by beating Southampton 3-1, whilst the Saints' new manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, watched on from the stands. Spurs went in front inside 10 minutes, but they could have gone in front so much earlier when Heung-min Son's volley hit the post. Harry Kane got the ball rolling for Spurs, however, when Christian Eriksen's low cross found the English striker at the near post, and Kane had the simple task of finding the back of the net. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg then saw his long-range effort crash off the post for the Saints at the other end in what was the Saints' best effort of the first half. Shortly after the interval though, Spurs punished Southampton further when Lucas Moura struck home after Southampton failed to deal with a corner. And moments later, Son scored Spurs' third goal when Kane picked him out in the penalty area and he found the back of the net. Nathan Redmond hit the crossbar for the Saints before Hugo Lloris in the Spurs goal was called into action in quick succession to make 2 saves from Højbjerg and James Ward-Prowse before Charlie Austin's header came off the crossbar. But then eventually, in the dying embers of the game, Southampton did score a late consolation goal when Austin latched on to a through ball, raced away from the Tottenham defence and finished well. But by then, it was too little too late to mount a comeback. I'm sure the new Southampton manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, will be looking at this squad and may see something in which he can build upon here. It may be a bit of a frustrating evening for if you're a Saints fan, in which they hit the frame of the goal on 3 occasions. But there were decent opportunities there, and yes, on another night they could have gone in, and yes, it is another loss for them, but there's definitely some positives to take away from this game. But for Spurs, it wasn't a pretty performance by any means. It wasn't, but they were clinical enough to pick up the 3 points. They move above Chelsea, as previously stated, and you'd have to think that their role now is to stay there. I don't see them catching Liverpool or City, so top 4 is really in their hands. And the next chapter in their road to securing top 4 takes them to an away trip against Leicester, while Southampton travel to Wales to take on Cardiff and what's to be Hasenhüttl's first game in charge. Our next game saw James Maddison rescue a point for Leicester at Craven Cottage, as Fulham now move level on points with the rest of the bottom 3, but still bottom via goal difference. Fulham had a great chance to open the scoring when Callum Chambers' sweetly struck volley was well saved by Kasper Schmeichel in the Leicester goal, before Alexander Mitrovic headed wide from a corner. Fulham eventually did open the scoring though through Abubakar Kamara, who drove on into the penalty area, cut back onto his right foot and fired into the back of the net. But with 74 minutes on the clock, the Foxes equalised. Shinji Okazaki's cutback found James Maddison, whose cool finish meant that Leicester were going to go home with a point. Good point for Fulham, although they'll be kicking themselves that it wasn't more than that. They definitely had the chances to make it so, but it's steady progress on the Ranieri so far at this early stage. As for Leicester, they were missing Jamie Vardy tonight, you could see it. Just his pace and threat on the counter-attack was something they were lacking tonight. But with Maddison in good form, you've always got a chance. He's having a great season so far, and hopefully it continues. Leicester play Tottenham at the weekend, whilst Fulham face a trip to Manchester United. Newcastle and Everton is our next game, and they had to both settle for a point apiece as the Toffees and the Magpies played out a 1-1 draw at Goodison Park. It was the Magpies who drew first blood when Jacob Murphy's decent cross found Solomon Rondon at the back post and the striker fired home. Both Gylfi Sigurdsson and Richarlison had chances for Everton but were denied by either last-ditch defending or Martin de Bruyne in the Newcastle goal, but there was no denying Richarlison a second time. Newcastle failed to deal with an Everton corner, and at the back post, Richarlison peeled off and fired into the roof of the net. Dubravka had to be called upon again, this time to somehow deny Cenk Tosun from close range as the first half played out. As for the second half, there were very few clear-cut chances, with the only real chance falling in the way of Rafa Benitez's side when Christian Atsu forced a great save from Jordan Pickford, but apart from that, neither side could find the winner. It's a decent point for Newcastle, and if you watch my preview show, you'll know that I predicted this result correctly, despite not being entirely confident. Regardless, Everton have been hit with a bad week with the derby, and then not being able to edge out Newcastle here, despite having plenty of decent opportunities. Everton go on to face Watford on Monday night, hoping their fortunes will turn around, whilst the Magpies face Wolves on Sunday. The next game, we saw West Ham make it back-to-back wins as they beat Cardiff 3-1 at the London Stadium. The first half saw 3 big incidents that all involved Marko Arnautovic. The first was at the right end, where the Austrian striker saw his shot cleared off the line, and the second was at the other end, where he brought down Junior Hoilett in the penalty area. The referee didn't hesitate in pointing to the penalty spot, but from the resulting penalty, Lukas Fabianski produced a great save to deny Joe Rouse from 12 yards out. The third incident from Arnautovic saw him hobble off injured, leaving a little bit of a shadow over the Hammers over their impressive win. Arnautovic's replacement was Lucas Perez, and he sparked the game back into life following the break. He powered home Robert Snodgrass's through ball to draw first blood to the Hammers, and 5 minutes later Perez grabbed his second, and West Ham's second for that matter, when his strike beat Neil Etheridge in the Cardiff goal from an acute angle. and after being played through by Arthur Masuaku. And just before the hour mark, Michail Antonio flicked home Robert Snodgrass's corner to put the game beyond all doubt for Manuel Pellegrini's side. Cardiff did manage to get a goal back through Josh Murphy following a goalmouth scramble very late on in the game, but it proved to be nothing more than a consolation. It's a great win for West Ham, but it could have been so different had that first half penalty by Cardiff been converted. Who knows how that would have turned out if that was to be the case, but it was a poor penalty regardless, and West Ham went on to take full control of the game and come back from that to win. Lucas Perez took both his goals very well. He never got a proper look in at Arsenal, and whilst it's sad for Arnautovic over his injury, and hopefully it's nothing too serious, but as one door closes, another one opens, and maybe Perez can take full advantage of this opportunity that he will probably be getting now. As for Cardiff, they'll be kicking themselves for missing the penalty, and if it weren't for Fabianski on a couple of occasions, they may have had a bit more joy in front of goal, but a few defensive mistakes cost them. But they now move on, and they move on to Southampton on Saturday, whilst West Ham take on Crystal Palace on the same day. The next game we're going to be focusing on saw 10 men Brighton defeat Crystal Palace 3-1 in what was an incident-packed game at the Amex Stadium. The Seagulls took the lead in fairly controversial circumstances when Glenn Murray scored from the penalty spot after the penalty was awarded by the referee when James MacArthur was judged to have brought down Jose Izquierdo in the penalty area, despite replays showing that before making contact with the man, he got the ball first. A moment of madness from Shane Duffy soon followed when he got into an altercation with Patrick Van Aanholt, and the Brighton defender headbutted the Palace fullback, and the referee had no choice but to show Duffy a red card. But despite being down to 10 men moments after the dismissal, Brighton doubled their lead. With his first touch since coming on as a substitute, Leon Balogun struck home from a Seagulls corner. Moments before Brighton stunned Palace by grabbing a third goal, Bernardo brilliantly cleared a goal-bound shot off the line from Luka Milivojevic. And then came the Seagulls' third and final goal. A long ball cleared upfield was chased by Florian Andoun, and he individually ran down the line, cut inside on his right foot and finished well to give Brighton a 3-goal lead going into half-time. Palace did manage to grab a goal back 10 minutes from time when the referee again pointed to the spot as Wilfred Zaha was brought down in the penalty area by Balogun, and Milivojevic stepped up to convert from 12 yards, but by then it was too little too late as far as the comeback was concerned. It was a good result for Brighton. It takes them up to the top half of the table, and they're quietly going about their business, which suits them, and hopefully soon they will get the recognition and rewards that they deserve. They may not be the most exciting team to watch, but they do have their moments, and they were a tough side to beat, as many teams have experienced already this season. As for Palace, a completely different performance when you compare it with their victory over Burnley last weekend. I would expect them to be safe, but they will do their usual yo-yo act of one week they're in danger, the next week they're safer. As I said before though, they do lack a clinical finisher up front, and January is fast approaching, and we know it's difficult to find a very good player during this time, but you'd hope for Palace's sake that they've identified that this is an area where they need to strengthen, and maybe they can try and find that striker to help them push on and aid their bid for survival, even if it is just for like a loan deal till the end of the season. Regardless though, I'd still expect them to survive. Our next game on the agenda saw Bournemouth return to winning ways as they ended their run of 4 games without a win to beat Huddersfield 2-1. Callum Wilson got Eddie Howe's side off to the perfect start, breaking the deadlock inside 5 minutes with a well-placed header, and Bournemouth doubled their lead under 20 minutes later when Ryan Fraser slid home after being played through by goalscorer turn provider Wilson. Asmir Begovic was called into action on several occasions to deny Huddersfield a route back into the game, but eventually the Terriers did half the deficit before half-time when Terence Congolo headed home past Begovic to give Huddersfield some hope of a comeback. But despite not being at their best, Bournemouth held out for the win through the second half. Good win for Bournemouth to get back to winning ways, but Huddersfield will feel a little unlucky not to have got something out of this game. But those fine margins are what makes the Premier League what it is. Feel sorry for the Terriers in a way, but at the same time, you can't help but feel Huddersfield are more than likely to go down this season. They're unfortunate that they lack quality in key areas, and I think in this league, the hard work and fighting spirit that Huddersfield showed last season will only get you so far. I'll be surprised if they do stay up, but it would be a welcome surprise at the same time. As for Bournemouth, if they can put together some consistency, no doubt they can aim for playing European football next season, but it will be tough for that. For them, and that's evident by their next game being against Liverpool at home. As for Huddersfield, their next chapter in their road to Premier League survival takes them to London and a game against Arsenal, so things don't get any easier for David Wagner's side. And that rounds up game 15 of the Premier League season. Guys, if you have any thoughts or opinions on any of the games that occurred during this round, I would love to hear them in the comment section below. Whether it's the team you are supporting, team you are following, maybe it was about some various incidents or what occurred in the aftermath of this. I would love to read your thoughts, opinions, etc, etc in the comment section below. Otherwise, guys, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button on the way out, subscribe if you're new, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. That'd be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, guys, once again, thank you for watching and listening. I'll be back again with another preview show as the games are coming thick and fast now in this era or this time of season. I've been Fletch. This has been another Premier League review show, and I'll see you all and speak with you all again soon in another video.